instead of Team Jacob or Team Edward, I'm Team Foreskin.
I'm prepping for the foreskin wars.
Dude, I just want my foreskin reparations.
Yeah, foreskin
It was
reparations.
taken from me when I was so young, and I want it back. And like, when are they gonna give it to me?
And bringing it back to Twilight, like, why couldn't they have had a boy and that become like a thing that gets voted on? Like, do they circumcise or not circumcise? Like, and then that's like a whole thing of like.
Is that like a vampire tradition?
Yeah.
Okay, well, in Twilight, they cut the umbilical with their teeth, so I don't want to.
I'm gonna say it would be a smart move that the vampires do not circumcise, because then you're bringing in the age-old anti-Semitic trope of like Jewish vampire, like the blood-sucking.
Okay,
so like let's hope that if they did that, they would be on the side of non-circumcision.
Right, it's the werewolves that get circumcised.
Okay, so I've only seen the first Twilight movie.
Yeah.
Right, and so I don't know if they answer this in the sequels. But
why are they good at baseball? Good question.
No,
That
makes sense to me. That's the best scene in that movie.
That's the best scene.
Yeah, definitely.
That's if I did a music video or something. Go ahead.
Yeah, and but why does Edward go to school?
So they do explain that kind of in the first movie. He's a loser.
Yeah.
And he's just played by Robert Pattinson, so he's really handsome. But if you just watch the movie, like for probably the first 45 minutes or so, you can play it as just like he is a weird kid who's pretending to be a vampire.
Twilight low-key does actually like fuck pretty hard.
I think the second, third, and fourth movies all suck ass. But the first and last movie are so fucking
Jacob,
good.
you imprinted on my daughter? I didn't have a choice.
Here's
Name my daughter after the Loch Ness Monster?
I do think it's interesting though, like a lot of franchises like this, especially ones that are like geared towards more like young girls or women. The first one, and this is something that a tradition you see in a lot of movies, franchises. The first one's directed by a woman, and then all the sequels are directed by men.
Rightfully so.
It happened in Twilight.
They know what a teenage girl wants. They're Hollywood producers.
It happened in 50.
They're used to dealing with teenage girls.
It happened in 50 Shades as well. The first one was directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, and the second two were directed by some other guy.
Yes,
the guy who directed Glengarry Glen Ross. I don't remember his name.
What a weird choice.
Really?
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
Holy shit! What the fuck?
Famed
Wild.
murderer Alec Baldwin, Glen
Yeah, true. True. Dude, apparently like Alec Baldwin's like daughter is on like social media, like on TikTok, and like people found out that is Alec Baldwin's kid, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no, like people say I'm a nepotism baby, but it's like I've worked for everything I have," and they're like, "I'm starting my own production company and blah blah blah," and I'm like, "You didn't work for any of that. You think entering the film industry where it's a high cost of entry to get into to make a production company, and on top of that, to have the background needed, and on top of that, have people say yes to you when you're in your mid-20s and have no experience? You think the last name Baldwin has nothing to do with
I don't
that?"
know, but she did get called a fat little pig, and that was
by her father.
Yeah, by her father.
Well,
and that was broadcasted on national TV.
True.
So she put in her lumps.
Pretty wild.
I mean, that's pretty fucked up of him, yes, as is most things he does.
Father of the year, ladies and gentlemen.
He is
very fucked up, but
he's a kind of a piece of shit.
He's not a Charlie Sheen piece of shit, but he's a piece of shit.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
As far as we know, yeah.
A side note, real quick thing, because I hate seeing the discourse online about it. The shooting was, and I know you guys agree, was 100% his fault. Not because he was the actor holding the gun, but because he was the producer in charge of hiring the armorers and setting the tone on set for all the safety guidelines. And he skirted all of that and skirted the union to save money.
Also, I mean, maybe I'm throwing myself into the fire on this one. I don't think I am. And I know that all the safety precautions are supposed to be in place so that way you don't have to check the gun. But if you should fire a gun, you should check the chamber.
Well, that's the thing. Like, actors are still told as a part of like the proper chain is that before they do every take, they still have to check it after the armorer. Like, well, it's not even
that's his gun safety.
Well, technically it's not even that like they check it on their own. What usually happens is the armorer comes by while it's in the actor's hand and they show them.
Yeah.
And so the actor themselves is seeing because but yeah. So no, it's 100% on him. Also, I mean, they allowed people to bring live ammunition on set to like go shooting cans in between takes, The fuck kind of nonsense is that?
Why would you do that?
Yeah, no, it's so insane, and it's like, dude, I thought we learned our lesson from the 90s with the Crow incident, which we did. To be fair, we learned a lot from that, and like the reason why guidelines are so strict is because of that. And in the years since, there's not been a lot of incidents, and this is because he skirted the union.
Yeah.
Every time you go against the union to save money, guess what's gonna happen? Some fuck shit.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, no. I mean, fuck Alec Baldwin. He's a shitty Trump, anyways. His impression was never that good. Side note: his impression was
never that good, folks. He's just never that good at it.
Yeah.
His impression never that good.
He literally just kind of looked like him if you like look from a distance.
Yeah, and it was.
When I pull down my pants and show everybody my asshole, no one can tell the difference between me and Alec Baldwin's asshole. I think we have very similar assholes.
Yeah, plus he's like, he's just a dumb shitlib and everything, and so it's like, he's attacking Trump because he loves Hillary Clinton.
That being said,
like,
he is funny in 30 Rock.
Oh yeah, no, but that's because he's playing himself.
Yeah.
He's playing a fucking egotistical asshole.
Speaking of playing yourself.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So today's episode is on.
Can I? No, never mind. I was gonna do a bit that would have to cut out.
Okay, well you just made that whole section and transition just so awkward and uncomfortable.
A long, long time ago, there was a young themster named Ezra Miller, and Ezra Miller decided to crawl down the cacophony, the massive pit spiral, the prison of all the demons and horrors of the world. And they crawled down and they found the devil himself, and they said, "Devil, please tell me your secrets." And the devil said, "No." And Ezra Miller said, "Why?" And the devil said, "Because I fear what you could do."
And he was correct.
Yeah, and the devil was correct.
The devil was correct.
So yeah, life imitates art imitates life.
Lynn Ramsay, I guess, could see the future.
Could see the future. Yeah. So we and whoever the author of the book was, I don't know who the author was, but we need to talk about Kevin. Is today's episode a movie that hopefully you have watched? If you haven't watched it, be aware, spoilers ahead like every single episode. I highly recommend you go watch the movie. It is on Amazon Prime is how we watched it, right?
As of this recording.
As of this recording right now, it is on Amazon Prime to watch.
It's been on Hulu. It's been on Netflix.
Yeah,
it probably makes the rounds.
It makes the rounds. It gets picked up pretty often. So like I recommend you go watch it. It's really good. And honestly, you might want the comforting idiocy of us after watching the movie to make sense of what you just witnessed.
Because the movie is
it's a downer.
It's a bit bleak.
It's a bit bleak. So it's a lot of movies have tackled like psychopaths either from like the perspective of the psychopath with something like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer or The Voices. Or
American Psycho,
or House that Jack built,
Natural Born
Killers. There's a lot of movies that have covered it from that perspective. There are movies that have also covered it from the perspective of like just like the victims of such crimes. One that comes to mind is Gus Van Sant's Elephant, because this is a school shooter movie, and so it's appropriate to probably name the other most prominent school shooting movie, which is Elephant. And that one. It did focus a little on the killers, but it did mostly focus on like all of the students and everything surrounding it. But what's interesting about when you talk about Kevin is that it focuses on the demographic involved in a school shooting that is probably the most interesting and the most overlooked, and that is the parents of the killer. Because this movie asks the question via the eyes of Tilda Swinton, could I have stopped it? Did I know ahead of time? Is this my fault in some way?
Yeah. It's a very, very tough movie. Asks a lot of like really tough
tough, but I think important questions. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So Tilda Swinton plays the mother. John C. Reilly, in a return to his dramatic acting, because this is 2011. This is around like 2004 onwards. Like after Chicago, he got into being like in all the Adam McKay comedies and everything. He became known as a comedic actor. But I think this is his like first big return to dramatic acting, because he was like in huge dramatic indie roles in the 90s. Yeah,
he was in Magnolia, and he's fantastic.
Yeah, he was in Magnolia.
He was something else around this time where he plays a stepdad. and I don't remember what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember he plays. It's some kind of teen drama, and he plays a stepdad in it, and he's very good.
He's such a great actor because he's one of those actors that is just inherently likable.
Yeah.
And no matter like what role he's in, even if the role itself, the character he's playing isn't necessarily.
He's full of so much honesty. And we'll
like,
get
like for his character in this movie, I would say the dad character in this is probably one of his least likable characters that he's ever played. But with John C. Reilly, he has such charm and charisma that you can't help but.
And it's a lot of the unlikable things about him are because you are seeing the objective truth of like what Kevin is doing behind his back. But if you step into his shoes,
he doesn't know.
He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. To him, it's like, Kevin's a good kid and everything. So
yeah, but also he doesn't really try. And that's the whole thing with this movie. It's just like Tilda Swinton, Eva. Her name is Eva. Hey, another Eva reference.
Yep.
Oh, we should have put fucking Evangelion.
She's the mom of the moody teenager who does horrific crimes.
Mm-hmm. So guys, we got the Evangelion reference out of the way. It seems like
imagine John C. Reilly as Gendo.
It seems like that'd be a good.
That'd
casting,
actually be really good as Gendo. He'd be really good
because he'd be playing kind of against type with that. I could fuck with that idea. Actually.
Yeah, no, I could. John C. Reilly's got the chops for that.
Yeah,
he's got the chops. He's point of fact.
He could also play Asuka too. He'd be a good Asuka.
He'd be great Asuka. Misato. Him in the leather skirt the short red leather jacket and the sunglasses.
Who's the guy with the ponytail? Misato's.
What's his name? I can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about.
But
fuck man.
Yeah. Anyways, so John C. Reilly.
Fuck master.
Point of fact. John C. Reilly is an underappreciated. He has balls. He's an underappreciated actor. We all kind of agree. Having seen plenty of the dramatic roles he's been in, he's really good in a dramatic role. It's just his career. He's most known for comedic roles, but as often is the case, the sad clown. Most comedians can actually become really good actors.
Yeah.
So there's that. Tilda Swinton's always great as Eva. She was great in this. She's the driving force of the movie.
Yeah.
Even in movies that aren't necessarily good that she's in, she's still good in them. Like Doctor Strange.
Exactly. She's always getting everything. I kind of really want to see 3,000 Years of Longing just because of her.
Yeah, me too.
I also because Idris Elba is hot.
George Miller's
good. Listen. But the advertising for the movie is kind of shit, and even though I love George Miller, I'm just like, I don't know if I really want to see this movie.
I love George Miller, but haven't seen either of the Happy Feets.
The first one is
you're missing it on True Cinema.
I haven't seen the second one, but I remember liking.
Have
you
seen Big in the City?
Oh, I love Babe.
Okay, you're a Miller head. Got you. Okay,
absolutely.
Bonafide Miller head.
Yeah.
I haven't seen.
And Lorenzo's Oil. Thank you.
Of course, yes.
2,000 Years of Longing.
It's 2 episodes we referenced Lorenzo's Oil now. Let's keep going.
But apparently it's 2,000 Years of Longing. It's getting very, very good reviews.
Well, yeah, that's good. But yeah.
3,000 Years of Longing, more like Nancy Pelosi's sex life.
I was drinking shit, dude.
Oh boy, howdy!
All night.
Boy, howdy! That's a good one.
That's a good one.
All right. So, speaking of other actors who are in this movie, the manager at the in the travel agency, she's the redheaded lady who's always smoking cigarettes and like the curly hair. She plays the same character in everything she's ever in, TV or movie or even sketch comedy. She's always like the same role.
Men in Black. She was in Men in Black. She was the same role.
Same role in everything. So it's kind of funny that even when she's not in a comedy, which she usually is,
she's a good character actress.
Yeah, she's a good character actress. She's done all the good stuff. And I gotta say now that we've exhausted every other bit of the cast we can, we need to talk about Kevin and we need to talk about Ezra. Ezra Miller plays
Lone Star Psychopath. Who's on the nation? Ezra Miller.
Because it's Ezra Miller is the giant elephant in the room with this movie.
Yeah.
You cannot talk about this movie without talking about their recent behavior.
No, not at all. So Ezra Miller is.
That's not fair to the movie at all.
No. If anything, it's a credit to the casting director. But so Ezra Miller plays the titular Kevin. Kevin being the school shooter in question, and he truly from infancy is clearly there's something fucking off about him. Like, he is just fucked in the head. He is just brain broken, and he is meant to be a fucking monster. And he acts like he's highly intelligent, super intelligent. That's what's so chilling. Even when he's an infant, or not an infant, he's like a fucking toddler.
He's like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like incredibly smart, and it's fucking scary to have a kid have that wherewithal. He's plotting. He's deceptive. He's manipulative. He's menacing. And side note, the kid who plays young Kevin, they really casted someone who looks like a little boy version of Ezra Miller. Insane, because it's 1-to-1. But Ezra Miller, I've always thought they were a good actor in spite of everything that just came out about them, which, I mean, fuck Ezra Miller, point of fact.
Yeah.
But, like, they've been going on a tirade, for those who don't know, through the islands of Hawaii. They were arrested
Vermont.
Also Vermont, and
another
the
place.
UK, I think, as well, or was
the
it
UK? There was also Japan.
I think Spain as well.
Yeah, there was a couple.
They were on an
countries.
international tour of violence, beating the shit out of random people. In Hawaii, at one point, they smashed a chair against the head of the 60-year-old woman. They threatened multiple people's lives. One time there was what was that fucking Lady Gaga song?
Paparazzi.
No.
Which one?
I can't remember. There's a Lady Gaga. It's the one from Star is Born.
Shallows. Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Shallows. I believe that was the song. Someone at karaoke in Hawaii was singing Shallows, and Ezra got very mad that someone would dare sing that song and butcher it, and then assaulted that person and had to be dragged out by the police. Later that day, they got bailed out, and then they went back to where they were staying, where there was a married couple laying in bed, and then they threatened to murder them, and then was immediately, within like an hour of being out of jail, got dragged back to jail.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing with the married couple, and the charges for that were like dropped right after Ezra Miller was arrested for that. Mm-hmm. And the married couple, apparently somebody found, because they first talked about it, where the news first broke was on a Hawaiian subreddit. And yeah, they were talking about Ezra Miller going nuts.
I mean, that's probably going to be the biggest topic on the Hawaii subreddit for like the entire like month.
And apparently at one point, like down a comment string or something, and I will not provide a source. You can try to find it yourself. I'm not saying it's true or not, but they were like, yeah, we're going to try to scam the fuck out of this dude.
Low-key based, though.
So, I'm just saying, this tirade, there's just so much to it that absolutely, probably most of it is true. But there are the verifiable things where there's video evidence, like the woman getting hit in the head with the chair. With the chair.
The compound in the desert with kids and guns.
Well, that's in Vermont. That's not in the desert. That is in like.
That was
Vermont.
in Vermont. Oh,
yeah, it's on a ranch that they own in Vermont, which weird.
But they also broke into somebody's house in Vermont and got arrested for that.
Didn't they?
And they choke slammed a fan a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was in Sweden, I think. Yeah. It was somewhere in Europe, I'm pretty sure.
Because I think that was at like some kind of convention or the airport or something.
No, it was at a store, I think.
They were just walking out and about.
No, they were at a convention, and Ezra Miller left the convention, and this person followed them where they were going, and then eventually.
Yeah. Ezra Miller, as well, is like one of those, like, okay, like on Twitter, like all the lefties in the comments, all the lefties watching, you ever just like see the unhinged, like very cringe leftists terminally online on Twitter who are just like about like every single like goddamn thing, and all they do is live on Twitter, and like they complain about everything, and they like their whole thing is like, I must be the purest leftist, and every other leftist is a dumb idiot baby, actually secretly a Nazi. Those kinds of people. There's a clear connection to Ezra Miller there, because that's the kind of leftist Ezra Miller is, to the point that they go on these unhinged Instagram live like rants.
I don't know, the one about pulling the KKK out of their homes and killing.
Okay, that one was cool. That was pretty sick. Okay, so like that's the thing, like, right? That was pretty sick.
And that was the they were wearing like a flash ring, and people started posting it on like DC pages, and they were like, "Look, the first official look at the flash ring," and it's like Ezra Miller talking about we need to pull them from their homes and shoot them in the back of the head.
Yo, soy boys are so funny, dude. Soy boys are so fucking funny. Consumer. That's a reference. It's a reference. No, but yeah. So part of this is because some people were confused, like, why did they have a compound in the middle of the woods with a bunch of guns?
And
like, they have
a bullet in a baby's mouth.
They're going to make.
But it's because they're like,
army.
yeah. It seems like by all accounts they have been trying to construct like a weird militia.
Wait, are they actually trying to do that?
I think not enough people trust them to do it now.
I was just playing. I didn't know they were doing it.
So there was stuff with like a baby and like a
bullet in its mouth.
Yeah, because they left ammunition and guns just out instead of locking them up responsibly. If you're a gun owner, own a safe or own a case that is lockable, especially if there are children or people who would hurt themselves with said firearm in your vicinity.
Even if you think your daughter's a fat little pig, Alec Baldwin.
I didn't realize what a cool name firearm was until just now.
Yeah, no, it's cool. But yeah, so like all that is to say, Ezra Miller turned out to be fucking psychotic and unhinged. And I always thought Ezra Miller was actually a really good actor. You know, like one of those like, yeah, they were kind of full of themselves or whatever. But like
Jared Leto.
Yeah, like a Jared Leto, where it's like, yeah, you know what, yeah. But like Jared Leto. Kind of a monster, and and in this case, not playing a character when playing Kevin. Kevin and Ezra Miller are very, 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 very similar. So yeah, let's talk about Kevin. Does anyone want to open up? Well, Jacob, it was on your list. Do you have any little factoids for us?
So it's based on a book that I have not read by an author that I knew the name of at some point today, but I no longer know the name of them. So the book is basically the movie. They followed it pretty much beat for beat, all the arrow shit.
Yeah,
and
a few minor differences.
See, that was one thing I was really interested in, because I was like wondering if like it was a choice of the movie to make it like a bow and arrow shooting, or if it was a choice of the book, because it was very thematically.
In the book, it's actually a crossbow.
Yeah.
And there's a.
Oh, is it?
It's a crossbow, and he actually targets specific people, as opposed to in the movie, it's just like at a pep rally.
The main difference is is how the narrative is structured, in the sense that it's written as letters from Eva to her husband,
which you don't find out until the end is dead, and so it's
right.
Yeah,
and that's kind of, you get that a little bit in the movie with voicemails.
Yeah.
Of like, Eva, when are you coming home? I miss you. And you're supposed to think that
he's
like,
still alive, and that she says like the whole like, oh, maybe we can work this out.
But they barely even try to do that.
Yeah,
they just kind of like sort of imitate at it just a little bit.
It's enough that if you didn't know that he's gonna die.
Oh no, it definitely helped shock me when I saw that
the first time. Yeah, exactly,
absolutely. But besides that, there's a few more in-depth conversations between her and Kevin while he's in prison. And Kevin's a bit meaner and nastier, and just sort of more front-facingly cruel. Just like everything, there is a lot of ambiguity because it's Eva in her letters.
It's from her point of view.
Yeah,
it's more subjective than objective. Yeah.
It's her being like, "Is this my fault? Is it not my fault?" But at the same time, then Kevin is more presented as just full-on evil from birth, but that also is supposed to be like, well, it's her writing the letter, and she's trying to excuse her parenting.
It plays like that. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like, it's basically the same story.
Which
it's adapted very well.
Which that's actually interesting to bring up, because like I think the movie does do that a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah, where it's like
just in a different way.
Yeah, it's in a different way, because like one of the first, two of the biggest moments that happen where it brings into question her parenting and herself, if it's her fault, is the arm break scene, because she does get violent with him, and she snaps he turns it into a fucking like pipe cleaner, you know what I mean? Just and then the other one in which it happens is actually very subtle, and I really like it, because it's not necessarily parenting. It's more of like her own nature, like who she is. And that's when they're at the mini golf course and there's the two fat people behind her and she goes, God, fat people. God. They always want to say it's some sort of thyroid condition or whatever, but it's just food. Your fat little self, kid, just wants to eat. Simple as you're just eating all these trans fats and it's so bad for you, blah, blah, blah. And Kevin looks at her and goes, you can be so cruel sometimes. And she goes, you're one to talk. And he goes, I am. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
that was one of the first.
Just throwing it back at her.
And then he immediately follows it up by saying, like, oh, where do you think I got it from?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit. Holy shit. So, like, that's, I don't know. I think that's one of the most interesting things about this movie. The dynamic between the two of them is really good. And I got to say, man, do they just play off each other so well?
Yeah.
Ezra Miller plays off so well off of Tilda Swinton. They really do feel like mother and son.
Oh, they also the book also goes more into like her diet while she was pregnant, and it goes into like the origins of psychopathy of like it can be just genetics. It can be something that you develop in the womb. It can be something you develop at a young age. It can be something that you develop as you grow up and never fully manifest until you're an adult.
I mean, that's definitely one of the like big driving kind of like thematic things of this movie is like nature versus nurture. Of like, was Kevin always destined to be this way? Was he a product of his environment, or was it both? Yeah. Because I wouldn't exactly say he grew up in a loving home per se. There's a lot of
his mother had hostility towards him all the time.
There's a lot of hostility, especially between him and his mother. And like he does seem to have a better relationship with his father, but that's because his father is kind of I would say while he's physically there, he's mentally kind of absent. Yeah. And so
but I think part of that too is also like a little bit of the subjective lean towards Eva in this movie, because it's like I don't think he is like that absent. I just think it's like he's not necessarily picking up on the same things as her as a part of the Kevin manipulation that he is, since we only see him because of Eva and through scenes with Eva. Like, you know, he's portrayed as that way, but I don't think he's necessarily that absent. I think a lot of it is that, but he's not noticing things, to be fair. Yes.
Well, and also there's the parts where like where Eva goes to John C. Reilly. She's like, so as the title says, we need to talk about Kevin, right? It's like there's something really off about him, and he just doesn't want to hear it, and he's not really listening to her in any way. I mean, and this is something that they established, like even from Kevin's birth. It's just like you could tell just how exhausted she was, because she was basically taking care of him by herself while he was off doing whatever. Photography. Yeah, whatever. You know, whatever exactly. And you know that could have been definitely one thing that kind of maybe led.
Yeah, I think.
But at the same time, it's like if somebody seems to have a grudge against a baby. And
because she's always had that from the beginning.
You kind of make that mentally of like, okay, well, pregnancy and labor were hard. You're going through some post-traumatic stress.
Postpartum depression.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, like, it never stops, and you never stop hearing your wife complain about your son. It would eventually you would just tune it out.
Which also plays into the whole like, is it her fault in the sense that she is like Kevin, because there's multiple like mirroring moments in the movie between her and Kevin. One of the most obvious ones is whenever she's like washing her face, and it cuts between her and him washing their face, and they do look a lot alike. He gets his like his black hair from her and everything. Like they look very similar. He does not look anything like John C. Reilly. Yeah. He says the whole like, I learned it from you, Mom. And also when she goes to see him in prison, he's biting his fingernails and he's neatly setting them down in a row. And later we see her, she eats the broken eggs and she's pulling out exactly the same as him, the eggshells, and laying them neatly in a row. And it's like, so it's like, is it, in this case, is it that she also has some sort of like mental illness similar to him, maybe not as extreme, but some sort of mental illness like him that like, from John C. Reilly's perspective, it's like, this is, and he loves her, so he's like dealing with it, but he's like, this is just her like mental illness, perceiving this normal baby as having a grudge against her because it's doing normal, inconvenient, or rude things a baby would do in his mind.
Well, because part of that is also, something I do like about this movie is that Tilda Swinton's character is not. It really is made out. It's like, well, maybe you were just kind of a shitty parent, because the first scene we see her in is doing this like tomato crushing festival in Italy or something.
I think it's Spain.
Spain, yeah, it is Spain. But and then later you find out she's a travel writer, so like you understand like she did have a pretty eventful life leading up to meeting John C. Reilly and having Kevin, and I think part of like having a child is realizing like this is my job. Like this is like I'm doing this full time now. I'm taking care of this.
And also the other thing too is what we learn later in the movie is that scene is not from before she met John C. Reilly. That is when she already had Kevin and he was like a toddler, and she went because they had an argument about it. Because she's like, I have to go to Spain. No one else is going to be, I need to do this. And he's like, can't you send someone else? And she lies and says, I have to do this. Yeah. And well, it's not necessarily a lie. She needs to do it for herself. And so retroactively looking back at that scene from the beginning and knowing that is that moment, it's like she gets to feel her fucking self again.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the ultimate, like, what is it? When did Kevin go bad? Kevin went bad before he was born because he shouldn't have been born, and that's
because she never wanted him.
That's a massive part of what this movie's about. As she's giving birth, they're saying stop resisting.
Yeah, it's a difficult birth,
and she's resisting because she doesn't want to have a baby, and so then she's a mom, and she's resisting being a mom because she doesn't want to be a mom.
She wants to go explore and travel.
Yeah, she also resents Kevin for basically taking away from her dream.
And while Kevin does just have some inborn sociopathic tendencies that could have been guided in such a way that he doesn't have some kind of massive violent outburst, because there are plenty of sociopathic people.
I have a friend who is like a diagnosed sociopath, and like they're like a normal person because they go to therapy and they've learned from a young age like
it's
how
like
to
1 in 25 people. Like it's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually sociopaths, and there's a lot of you wouldn't know a lot of them.
Yeah, they're not all violent. It's
there's the difference between sociopathy and psychopathy, right? Yeah. The biggest difference is violent impulses and tendencies, and one of the biggest things that and I'm not armchair psychologist here. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist at all, but like from what I've read, you can be born with sociopathy and it develop into psychopathy due to traumas in your life or like certain like impulses not being curbed early on or whatever, and it just cascades.
From what I understand, psychopathy is being compelled to violence and being compelled to negative activity.
And then sociopathy is just like
apathy to it.
And with sociopathy, for a lot of people, they don't really realize that there's anything wrong with them until they become an adult, until they get years until they age into like their teenage years, because the thing with sociopathy is you don't really have emotions. And so because of that, at a very young age, you learn to imitate emotions.
It's not that you don't have emotions, it's that you have like it's antisocial antisocial
personality disorder.
Antisocial personality disorder. And it's not that you don't have emotions, it's more of that your empathetic side is not quite there. And there are sociopaths who do plenty of them too.
Sociopaths get happy.
Well, no, I'm not saying. Obviously, but I'm saying that's not the thing. It's sociopaths. Then it's not. They either have like a breakdown of empathy where they can experience it, but it's like very, very, very limited, and it's hard.
It's almost like an equation.
It's an equation, and they have to really directly relate it consciously to themselves, or they just do not at all have any kind of real proper empathy. And so that's the thing. So it's like, Kevin, like, I don't know. That's a big thing there, but this movie deals with a lot of like mental health issues, and I think the best way possible, which is very vague, because I think that when it comes to writing mental health in movies, in any kind of fiction, you run into a lot of issues of not being the right person to talk about it, in that you don't do enough research or you don't have the background to properly tackle these things. But I think that shouldn't necessarily stop people from being able to talk about these things.
Yeah.
But like, just don't label it. Just honestly, don't label it.
Just
like,
don't
quite
use
frankly,
medical terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they never do in this movie at all.
Kevin is part of a system.
Kevin is in a lot of ways. I mean, Kevin
has
is
many alters.
okay. Fuck you. Okay, we're not getting into DID discourse right now. But yeah, no, Kevin is in a way a victim in this whole movie. While he is the monster who ultimately commits this horrible atrocity, he's also in himself as victim. Like, look at his upbringing. He had a mother who didn't just not love him, fucking actively hated him.
I mean,
Like
at a very
his whole life.
like at a very young age, and this is the thing. Kids are very sensitive, and this is
Yeah,
why
and
not everybody should have kids. And
No.
that's definitely one thing.
That's
to
one
talk
of
about.
the
But
like,
there's a scene.
Conservatives
there's
shouldn't have kids.
Okay.
We're not getting into
We're
that
not
right
getting
now.
into that
But there's
right
a scene specifically where she is telling Kevin, I don't remember how young he is, but I think he's like a toddler, where she's like, and he's like having one of his tantrums.
Mommy was very happy before Kevin
Yeah.
came along.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for you, I'd be
But
in Italy or
She
something.
she never hated him. She never actually hated him. She never liked him, but she always loved him.
She got used to him.
Yeah. Well, she loved him in the sense of like, even at his like highest tier shithead and being a teenager, she's still asking him to like go get dinner, go play mini golf. She's trying to
Yeah,
connect
she said
with him.
even when after he committed the horrible atrocity, she still visits him like every other weekend or whatever.
You don't know what her upbringing was like.
Yeah.
Because for some
Yeah.
people, being a good parent is just being there.
And this movie is. You mentioned this a little bit after we watched it, but we had to cut the conversation because obviously podcast. But it does mirror Lady Bird in quite a lot of its themes. It talks a lot about like your upbringing determining who you are versus your own nature. Also like what happens when you're like is your child really an outcome of like who you were, and also trying to be a good parent in your own way? Is that not enough? Because to you, what's good is only just better than what you previously experienced.
And to me, Eva is not too different from the mom and Lady
No,
Bird.
they're very similar.
I mean, both of these movies definitely have where both of the parents and both Lady Bird, and then when you talk about Kevin, are both just very imperfect.
Yeah.
Like Eva's whole problem is like she doesn't exactly give the love and affection to her son that she probably should, and that's something that she's been doing pretty much since birth. And as we've been talking about, also with John C. Reilly's character, he might be, I would say he is mostly a good father.
He's not interested in being the bad guy.
He's mostly a good father,
Yeah.
but he's kind of not a great husband either.
Yeah.
He's
there for the good moments
just-
for the most part.
I just thought of something.
What?
Evangelion.
Mm-hmm.
We said that before.
Yeah.
Kevangelion.
Ooh.
Kevin Jillian.
Also,
Eva and Kevin, they're similar names.
Wait. Kevin Genesis Eva Jillian.
I feel like in the inevitable American remake of Evangelion that they've been talking about for years, they're gonna
Timothy Chalamet.
they're gonna Anglinize the names, and Shinji will probably be like Kevin or
Sean.
something. Sean.
Sean G.
Like instead of in Death Note, it was Light. What was it? Light. Yeah. What's his character's name in the
Light
anime?
Yagami.
Light Yagami, and then in the Netflix movie, it's Light Turner or something,
Which is just so stupid.
or something like
Like
that.
Yorkton or something.
Yeah, but that's also another great story about a fucking psychopath.
Yeah. That's a different.
Hey,
guy.
Light.
Yeah.
Hey, Light Turner. Can you turn that light?
Turn that light on, Light Turner.
I would imagine a kid named Light Turner would get bullied for
Definitely.
being
Yeah,
named
so that's
Light
another
Turner.
thing. Like, do you think they don't really go into it, but like they might go into it in the book because you mentioned that like he targets specific people.
Mm-hmm.
Is he being bullied at school as well? Not that that's the ultimate cause of
It's,
like the shooting. It's there's all the underlying stuff.
It's
that,
never really gone
could
into
be a catalyst
because we only see this movie from Eva's
from Eva's perspective. Yeah.
So
It's-
it's hard to say. I
It's
don't.
more of like from what I understand of the book, it's more that he has that same thing that the mom has for fat people, Kevin has about everybody. And there are some worse offenders than others. And from my understanding, that's mostly what
So he's an
targeting.
incel.
Yeah,
He's like a
actually,
weird incel.
I have a little
A
quote.
weird twink incel.
I have a quote from Kevin from the book that I'll pull up real quick. He says,
One of the spookier things. Well, while you're pulling that up, another thing about the shooting that's interesting is yet again they avoid the use of an AR-15. which is most commonly used in school shootings, instead for a bow and arrow, and it makes sense thematically, and we'll get into the themes of it later, like the motifs, I guess, less than the themes, the motifs. We'll get into that later. But I do think it's interesting that the in the book it was a crossbow, because logistically it makes sense they switched to a bow and arrow. 2 reasons. One, it shows that Kevin yet again has just so much talent and skill that is ultimately wasted. Because he is an insanely talented archer. They mention it all the time, so it makes sense that he's able to do a mass archery shooting, which is wild. But also, no matter how good of a shooter you are with a crossbow, you're not going to shoot fast enough to be able to do anything before someone tackles you to the ground. Because if you've never reloaded a crossbow, it takes a minute to fucking reload that thing after each shot. Whereas a bow, he can Legolas it. I mean, not to be a little callous, but and they do show his I also like that. They only show his perspective of him shooting, and they show later the outcome of people being pulled out on stretchers. But they do not get. I really respect this movie for this.
They don't glorify the violence.
They don't glorify the violence. They don't do any of that. Now, go ahead and back to what you were saying about his quote.
So this quote is actually more so directed at his mother, but it's, "You may be fooling the neighbors and the guards and Jesus and your gaga mother with these goody-goody visits of yours, but you're not fooling me. Keep it up if you want a gold star, but don't be dragging your ass back here on my account because I hate you."
Jesus.
Damn.
I mean, that actually goes into something I've been wondering about, which is like
in the book he explicitly hates his mother.
That makes sense. But like, why? I wonder. We don't exactly know why exactly she even goes to visit him in prison at all. Because I know from my experience, like, if Kevin does this thing, I'm never speaking to the let alone the school shooting. That's bad enough.
I mean, that's still her kid.
But then he murders his own father and his baby sister.
But see, that's the thing. That's actually really realistic about it. As just said, it's still her kid. If you look at like every major serial killer and even a lot of mass shooters, please don't be.
Yeah, sorry.
Every major serial killer and mass shooter and like their relationships with their families, they do break down a lot and their families hate them, but they still feel this obligation and compulsion to go visit them in prison. It happens all the time.
To tie it into Lady Bird a little bit, part of what this movie is about is a mother's love, and that's what I'm trying to say with like.
That's why that one song plays. Like, there's nothing like a mother's love that plays all the time.
For her perspective, showing up, like, she doesn't have to get along with this kid, but she has to raise the kid, and she has to be there for him.
It's an obligatory thing.
And she follows up with that, and she does what she can, and she tries to, maintain her own sanity within it, but she's showing up, and she's there for him, and she does her best to not make his life a living hell.
So I think another thing that's important that answers this question of like, why does she show up, on top of the obligation aspect or on top of like, the real life comparison of like parents of these people who commit these crimes still going to visit them. A lot of it has to do with she does actually love him. And I think this is one of the big changes of the movie and the book, based on what you were saying, especially that quote. No matter what he says, he loves her. And one of the only moments we ever see any kind of actual, like, unbridled, non-plotting love from him to anyone is to her when he's sick.
Yeah.
She's the only one. And there's, like, the question of, like, why did he kill John C. Reilly and his little sister when he's like, actually, like, John C. Reilly's character really loves him, and he's like, he's always nice to him, he's always really cool with him, and why didn't he kill Eva? It's probably because he sees himself so much in her. They're so similar that he loves her. I
mean, it's that comment. It's about the fat people. He sees himself in his mother, and he sees his dad and his sister as, while they're fun, they're the TV watchers of the world. They're expendable. Mm-hmm. They can be killed. Their lives are meaningless. They're nobody. And to me, it's like you go into the end, and it's like she genuinely does love her son. And I think she thinks her son hates her. And when you get to the end of the movie, to me, this is the most revelatory moment. She asks, because this is the other reason she's going.
She wants to know.
She wants to know why he did it. And she asks him, why did you do it? And he says, I used to think I knew why. And now
I don't
not
know.
so much.
Yeah, and as well, he for the first time is scared.
Right. And
Yeah.
what I think is behind all of this is I think in his twisted little psychology, he believed that he hated his mother, and that was a relationship of hate. And like he essentially thought that his mother didn't love him, at least in the ways that he thought he was entitled to
yeah.
by being alive. And
She was the only one who ever like knew who he really was
Right.
and treated him
yeah.
how he
Yeah. And he despised her for that for years and eventually goes on this like mass killing. And it's not entirely to spite her, but that is the beginning.
Part of it's
seed.
the narcissism as well
Yeah.
of like wanting to be the person
Right.
on TV.
But
And yeah.
the
Yeah.
beginning seed is wanting to pull one over on his mother. Because
Yep.
that is how his whole life of being evil
Oh
started.
yeah, you get the sense that like part of why he spared her as well, or at least at the time why he thought he spared her and why he did this, part of it, why he thought at the time was to spite her, that he
Yes,
knew it would make
yeah.
her life a living hell.
Exactly.
Which it does. It makes it a
And-
fucking living
and
hell.
When he says, I think I used to know why, I think that's what he's thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
is how he made her life a living hell. And then he's thinking about how he's going to go to an adult prison, how he'll still, the only person he'll see that'll be a friend will be his mom. And he looks over at her and he goes, now I don't really know anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because he realized that his mom is actually the only person who ever loved him. It wasn't his dad.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't his sister. It wasn't people watching TV. It won't be prisoners in the
Because he was always
yard.
he was never really cruel to his father. He was always upfront, very cruel to his mother, and even still, she tried to love him.
Yeah.
And yet again, times like when she would read the story of Robin Hood to him for the first time, he really did love her, and she really was loving him in that moment. And so it's like it's that leveling with each other, you know.
I mean, he was also kind of just a real menace to his little sister.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
he was
even-
too, but it's
even-
the same thing as like how he sees his father.
Like
exactly.
he
Like-
seemed to
Yeah.
be like, I would say at best completely indifferent towards her.
Yeah, he kind of was. Like
Didn't
like
he-
it's
did-
like his dad. Like part of like made
he
her
would be
go
nice
blind.
that
and-
he would be nice to them just to prove to his mom that he could be nice, so that way when he wasn't nice to her, it hurt all more.
Well, with his sister, I feel like he was kind of a prick. Like he left the fucking
Yeah.
Chemical-
thing
Chemicals out
unlocked,
on-
so she ended up blinding herself.
Yeah, and he also like put her guinea pig in a garbage disposal.
Yeah, sucked her fucking hair into a vacuum.
Yeah, no, he was a piece of shit. And like to quote the little sister, "Mom, Kevin is right. I am stupid."
Yeah.
And and that's why he was cruel to her. It's not because he hates her because she's happy or whatever because she's normal. It's because it goes back to the fundamental view that you see on that tape of him like announcing why he did it.
Yeah.
Where it's like she's a TV watcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her and her dad are just TV watchers.
they're watching? People like me. That's also a very Ezra Miller, like very.
It's very yeesh.
Ugh.
Yeah, but it does get into like a lot of the like similar things like you're talking about Natural Born Killers at the very beginning, as like a mass shooter type of movie like that. Like that's what that whole movie is about is about that relationship between media and
yeah.
these people who commit these like stochastic mass violence events.
Natural Born
That's a big
Killers
thing.
is like far more satirical though.
Oh yes, of course,
Definitely.
of course. But
Whereas
yeah,
this movie is a lot more grim and like focuses really much on the characters and
So, yeah, no, I agree. There's a couple things about this movie too. I think it's relatively straightforward. It's more of a character piece. It's not too dripping in symbolism and abstract ideas like Birdman is, but there are certainly elements of that, and that's what I kind of want to get into.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of them that
Red.
is a
Yep.
big thing.
Massive thing.
Short scene that I'll mention because we mentioned earlier, stop resisting, and I know you wanted to mention it when we were watching, and I knew what you were getting at, but we didn't. I know you didn't want to get into it, and we had to stop getting into it, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, but we get the direct relation of that when she's like leaving, visiting him for the first time we see in the movie, and there is a man being beaten by the police
Yep.
saying I didn't do anything wrong, and they keep yelling stop resisting,
No.
and then they go through the blinding white doors, which is another thing. Blinding white doorways, that to me, that's a lot of like transition, new life, new, moving, shifting between, whatever. That's also like very important. So the red is very important to that. Any of the Robin Hood like parallels, imagery, music. That's all very, very big. And then the final thing that I think is the biggest thing, the most important bit of symbolism and allegory in the entire movie, is the renovation. Because she just kind of does it, and we don't really think about it. Yeah. And it's kind of like the last thing the movie ends on, besides the whole, like, I used to know, answer. And that's, while she's, like, cleaning up the house that people are throwing paint on and, like, vandalizing because she's the mother of the fucking mass shooter in this small town, she's renovating the upstairs bedroom, and we don't realize until the end she's making an exact replica of his room. And the average watcher might think at first she's making it because he's getting out, and he's not getting out. He's going to federal prison. He's not in juvie anymore
for the rest of his life.
the rest of his life. He's serving a life sentence. So that's not what's happening. But notice what is really important. She inhabits the bottom floor of this house, and the only time we ever see the upstairs is when she's working on that room, and the ultimate reveal that room is what is upstairs. That is, like, in her. Like, that is her subconscious. Like, that is, like, deep down. She has a piece of Kevin in her fully and always. And part of the catharsis and revelation of this movie and why she's going to be able to move on with her life ultimately is that ultimate final realization by creating that room up there, is knowing that she will never get rid of that part of her that is Kevin, and that she has to accept that she played a role in what he did, not blame herself, but also know going forward that that is a part of her and is always going to be a part of her.
Yeah.
That he didn't just come out of nowhere. They are just alike in some sort of way.
But he did also just kind of come out of nowhere.
I mean,
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
even
even though all the signs were definitely there. Oh, but the thing is, though,
I mean, the
hindsight's
cry.
2020.
I mean, when he was born. I
Yeah.
wasn't talking
Yeah,
about.
it's what I imagine this is true for all parents of mass shooters, right? It's just like you look back on the child's life and maybe your life as a parent, and you go, where did I go wrong? Where all the signs were there and I just didn't see them. And
if you're the parent of a mass shooter, comment. Let us know. Was this your experience?
Jesus Christ.
Of course,
if you are a mass shooter, get
the Harris
out.
and Klebold family, feel free to type down below.
Of course, we the audience have the benefit of omniscience of so of course we know exactly what is going to happen. Also with the movies, nonlinear editing, we could see exactly how this.
But
is going
I don't
to be.
think it's necessarily that we are omniscient. I think it is subjective from Eva's point of view.
No,
and
I
think
mean-
that and not only that, it's the reason we are seeing what we are seeing in the movie and not all the other uneventful moments in Kevin's life and in Eva's life. It is fully that moment of hindsight is 2020 of that parent going through this and going, what did I do wrong? What is it? And they hyperfixate on everything they think they should have seen. And I know you're saying that we as the audience can obviously see that immediately, but that's because we're going through her shoes of looking back. But if we were presented with it like the slow drip life that he had, not from her, the slow drip life that he had, we probably wouldn't have caught it either.
I mean, yeah, because I think that's kind of what this movie is saying. It's just because you have this entire town really vilifying her. Like she's straight up assaulted, just walking home from work one day by one of the parents. I guess it's one of the parents of one of the kids that was shot.
Well, you see
right?
all of those people
then,
that assault her. You see them in the final scene.
You do.
And I think this movie basically is being very sympathetic to the parents of these kind of people, saying you can't blame them. It's not necessarily their fault that their child came to be this way. It's just because you can never really truly see the signs. It's just because you as a parent, especially once you become a teenager, teenagers all have their own lives. They have their own kind of sense of independence, and then you as an adult,
they just buy bike locks off the internet.
They collect viruses.
She's also focused on her career. As a writer, she writes a book, right?
A bestseller.
Yeah. And her marriage is falling apart, and
she's also focusing on raising their younger child.
Because I think
she needs more attention.
Yeah, because she's. I think she truly kind of learned the mistakes of being a parent to Kevin, and that's why the little sister is seems to be a much
Sweeter,
happier, much sweeter
happier
child.
yeah.
Because they definitely, I would say Eva definitely learned her lesson, and I would seem like because she was actually wanted, she actually wanted that child, whereas you mentioned earlier, Jacob, she didn't really want Kevin, and that was one of the biggest mistakes, was like probably having him in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I think as a child, I think because kids are smarter than a lot of people
They're
can
more
give them credit
observant
for.
and everything.
And I think kids at a young age can kind of sense especially if there's like real hostility towards them by one of their parents, that like maybe I'm just not supposed to. I wasn't supposed to be here.
and I think
I you can only imagine what that does.
Well, I think
to
one
a
of
young
the
child's
scenes
psyche.
that we see specifically that points that out is when they're arguing about divorce, and she, it's very clearly about Kevin, and he's up on the upstairs landing, on the banister, and John C. Reilly goes, "Oh, bud, like,
Hearing stuff out of context.
Hearing stuff out of context, it sounds worse than it is, or whatever." And Kevin, very rightfully and correctly, says, "What do you think? I'm stupid? You think I don't understand the context? I am the context."
Yeah.
But also,
like-
that moment should have been, and I get that John C. This is how you just really know that he's kind of dumb and he's not the best.
Yeah.
Is that moment when, after the girl loses her eye, Eva's convinced that Kevin was responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she's making it all up, I would not trust Eva around Kevin. If I thought Kevin was innocent and I thought that my wife, who's hated him for years, now thinks that he has seriously harmed our other child,
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel safe with Kevin around Eva. So what I would say is, John C. Reilly, is we don't have to get divorced, but I'm going to rent an apartment and I'm going to live with Kevin until he's 18 and he graduates high school, and maybe since he's cooler with me, he'll calm down and I can chill him out, and then we'll still
There's no
meet
real-
up for family dinners.
Yeah,
and
there's no
stuff,
real
but-
attempt to do anything, because like, also another thing, they're rich enough that this could be a viable solution.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, also, like, you would get family therapy at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah.
They never even considered
They don't
that.
even
It's never even mentioned.
Like, what's crazy is like they don't even consider family therapy. They also just don't consider couples therapy for the two of them where their marriage is on the
Or
rocks.
child therapy for Kevin.
Child therapy for Kevin. It's like none of that ever seems like the option to take.
Like
and
he's
it's like
like when you
or for like even the little daughter when she gets like her fucking eye is gone. You would put your kid in therapy for that.
To be like,
And I
hey,
feel-
kids are gonna make fun of you. Here's
I
how
mean,
to
well,
deal with
it's
it.
something, to be fair, that she considers very briefly when he's a toddler, because there's that scene where she takes him to the doctor when he's like
He
two,
says he's like a normal
when
kid.
she's like 2 or 3, and she's like, well, he's been completely nonverbal, and I read that like children should be talking by now, and I read that like that's one of the first signs of autism, and the doctor goes, well, he doesn't have any of the other signs, he's just maybe kind of a late bloomer in that sense. And also, I kind of got the sense that like he was still wearing diapers well after he should have been. Like he was 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 years old, still using diapers.
Well, to be fair,
I think he inexplicably just goes to the toilet one day
Yeah.
and it's just magically toilet.
It's a
paper.
control
he
thing.
goes
It's a
to,
control
he
thing.
goes to the toilet after he breaks his arm.
yeah.
It's because his mom showed him,
Well-
spoke his language to him, essentially,
Yeah.
using violence, and he was like, hey, I respect that.
Yeah.
And that's why he covered for her and didn't tell the doctor
Yeah,
that
and
that's
it's-
how he broke his arm.
Yeah, and it's also like it's that there's multiple layers to it because it's like that is part of the aspect, and the other part of the aspect too is that like it's part of the plotting nature of him. It's like part of it is like he covered for her because he knew that he could hold that over
Yeah.
her, and because he always he's rubbing the scar in front of her. And he says in prison, like, "Oh, it was the dumbest mistake you ever made."
No, he says it was the most honest thing you ever
Yeah,
did.
the
Yeah.
honest
Honestly,
thing
yeah.
he ever did.
All
But
Which is
also
extremely telling.
But the other thing, the other aspect of it is we are shown that he definitely. I mean, the fact that when he comes back, he just uses the bathroom like that, no
Yeah.
issue. But also the fact that he's intentionally shitting himself despite
Yeah.
her, so that she has to change him. Like it is like he's doing that on purpose. Like
Yeah.
it is like that.
Yeah,
So,
all I'm saying is when you break your kid's arm and his only reaction is to stare at you like Like, you either call another doctor
Or
or
you
a
get a
fucking
big
priest.
rock.
You call a priest.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
this movie.
That's what you do. Not get a big
Well, yeah,
rock.
Because
Very briefly.
I go back and forth between it's his upbringing, it's religious stuff, or
My
no, he's a
name is
demon.
Abraham, son of God.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm Abraham in that moment, dog.
It's funny you mention that because this movie actually does share a lot of similarities to The Omen.
Yeah, because he's a fucking demon.
Yeah, he's Damien. He's got some real
He's
Damien.
literally
He's got the
a
same
demon.
And
hair
also,
as Damien. Too.
I will say this movie asks the audience a very like tough, uncomfortable question, and it really puts you, I think, in Eva's shoes. And it's just like, what if this was you?
I'd kill
What
him.
if
I would have
what if
aborted the baby.
what if Kevin was your child?
Problem solved.
Me and my
How would you
okay.
Me and my
handle the
friends would have
situation?
killed Kevin with hammers. I can tell you
If
that
the
much.
question is, what if this was me? I'm not having that baby. It was aborted already. If the question is, okay, well, you just do. For some reason that didn't happen. You just do have this baby. First sign of him doing anything I don't like, dropping his ass off in front of the firehouse in a little basket. I'm putting his little ass in a basket, floating that thing down the river, letting
and then he
him float
becomes
down to
Well,
Egypt, become the king.
Well, yeah, so like, dude, dead ass. Like, one of the biggest things for me, it's like, you know what I would actually do, unironically, all memes aside, take him to fucking therapy.
Yeah.
Take him to fucking
I
therapy.
grab him by his little leg and smack him against the wall.
But the thing with this movie is though, like, I'm not really even sure if therapy would have worked.
Well, no, but it was never
But
attempted.
you could have tried, but who knows if it would have worked?
But the thing is, it was never attempted. That's a
Yeah.
part of like why she is
Yeah.
not necessarily was meant to be a parent or not meant to be his parent. Like, she couldn't handle it. Oh, another bit of symbolism that I really recognized just now when thinking about this yet again, the part of like he is a part of her, and they're like they're the same in some kind of way. Not only is it the room that she reconstructs his room in her house later on, but also he's mad at the fact that she has her own space and he like desecrates it.
Yeah.
And everything. But there's actually two things about that. One's kind of funny, but the first thing is like you see later on when he's a teenager, when she gets the virus on her computer, her office, she never cleaned it or she never removed those maps. It's still covered in the splattered paint everywhere, as if to say there is a piece in him. And she says, "This is my own personal space. It reflects my personality," as if to say that is a part of her too.
Yeah.
You know, the other one is this is just a funny one. It's after that incident when they show his room for the first time, because you don't see his room before that, and she's like, "We'll make it look like your personality." It's very plain, very sterile, fucking calculated. But there's a Jackson Pollock pillowcase on the pillow, and that's just kind of fucking. That's like one of those like set designer moments that's just so funny to me, because it's like you see John C. Reilly's here like, oh yeah, Eva, I got him a Jackson Pollock pillow because you did a good job painting up your office. It's about, he's got a creative side of him. He's a good kid,
Why does he sound like fucking one of the gargoyles or some shit, man?
I do.
John C. Reilly.
I do.
Sounds like Patrick Starr. What the fuck?
I do want to mention.
John C. Reilly sounds like. It's not a good
bit.
impression.
A little bit.
But he's got his dopey kind of like way of talking.
I do.
I don't know what you're talking about, guys. I just want to get some ice
Hey,
cream and go
boo-boo,
down to the
let's
ice
go
I
cream.
mean,
get
he
a
plays
picnic
fucking
basket.
Wreck-It Ralph. What do you want from me?
I
That's
do
how
want
Wreck-It
to,
Ralph sounds.
He's Dr. Brule.
Yeah.
He's Steve Brule. Dr. Steve Brule. I mean, I can't do it.
I do want to-
I'd have to watch a clip first.
I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about, but
Dr. Steve Brule.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
Tim and Eric. I don't even watch Tim.
Oh
and Eric.
shit! Yeah, that is.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's so funny.
Sorry,
I haven't watched much Tim and
it's-
Eric.
It's
I do want to very briefly mention, because we haven't really talked about her much. The director of this film, Lynne Ramsay.
Yes.
I haven't. This was the first movie I had actually seen with her, and in the subsequent days, since we need to talk about Kevin. I went and watched You Were Never Really Here.
That movie
movie
fucks.
fucks
I
so
love
hard.
It
that
fucks really
fucking
hard,
movie.
yeah.
Fucks so hard.
I'm
Let's not spoil the movie.
Yeah,
since
I'm
we
not
missed
gonna
out
talk.
about
I'm
that,
not
but
gonna
yeah.
really talk about that movie too much, but it's also really, really fantastic, and also
Very dark subject matter.
yeah,
as well.
also very kind of grim. And I will say one sense of style that I got with both of those movies, and it's probably in all of her movies, is like her movies. She has such a great way of like having this extremely moody atmosphere.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like that's definitely something I would say about. We need to talk about Kevin. It has like this sense of dread and
Yeah.
foreboding.
Yeah.
I mean, once you I went into the movie kind of knowing what it was about, but like if you go into this movie not really knowing that, because it does kind of have that reveal. Now you can put the clues together if you're watching it carefully enough, but you don't really get that reveal till near the end of the movie of exactly what he did. You know, he did something tragic.
Yeah,
but like,
and you get pretty heavy implications.
Yeah,
of it too.
but the movie has like such like this sense of like atmosphere on it.
You know,
because I remember
it like completely wraps around you like a blanket.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, I think another movie that's tonally very similar is Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah.
In that sense of dread it gives. And in fact, I'll compare it even further by saying, I'm not going to spoil Nocturnal Animals for anyone at all, don't worry, but the opening scene in Nocturnal Animals, now of course being like naked people and everything, but ignoring that, the way that is shot with the orchestral music and the moodiness and like the slow motion and the artfulness of it, like it's a big event, that is exactly like the same tone and vibe of the intro scene to We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Yeah.
And it really lays the groundwork
I don't
from
know
there.
if it's possible to spoil that movie.
Nocturnal Animals?
It's definitely possible to spoil it.
Yeah,
I can just tell you what it's actually about.
It's
but
absolutely possible.
gonna
I think I
do
had
that.
it on my list and then I took it off.
Wait, is what it's actually about a spoiler?
Yeah, that's kind of the reveal of the movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's an early reveal, but they like did not even hint at it in the fucking marketing.
No,
and then it's the first reveal, and then the one
there's
at the end.
the ultimate final reveal. Yeah, we're not gonna get. We're not. It's not about Nocturnal Animals, but the opening scene.
Well, we can do a
tonally-
special
I just
episode
thought
on
Nocturnal Animals was a mess that kept changing what it was about.
No, I disagree highly. We're not going to talk about Nocturnal Animals. Though.
Michael Shannon's great in that.
Is Nocturnal
it is.
Animals on your
Very
list?
No, let's stop talking about Nocturnal
But
Animals.
it's a good movie.
Let's stop talking about Nocturnal Animals. We need to talk about Kevin. We need to talk about Kevin.
He's a different nocturnal animal.
All right, he's a different nocturnal animal, dude. Okay, so you know what's one of the other
nights.
what's one of the other like things that really like fucks me up really hard was the scene where like she comes in, like she snoops through his room, she finds the disc that says like whatever, and she plays it and it's a virus that crashes not just her computer because she's hooked to the cloud to all of her work computers. It crashes everything at work too. And she's like, well, I guess I deserve this. She's like, and he's like, ha 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 ha. He's like, you know, and honestly, that is kind of her fault in the moment. You don't snoop on your kid like that. It's not the way you are supposed to figure those things out. And she did kind of just put a disc into
with
something.
the boy, you get the horns.
Yeah. And then he's like, okay, clearly it doesn't see, at first you think, oh, he set that there as a trap for her. Right, and he didn't.
No,
he didn't. And she goes, "Why? Why do you have this?" And he goes, "I collect them." So implying that all those other discs are also viruses. And she's like, "Why would you collect something like that?" And what is the point of that? He goes, "There is no point." She's like, "What do you mean there is no point?" He goes, "That is the point. That there is no point." And once you realize that, then it all makes sense.
Yeah,
and that goes into like a lot of the things that happen later in the movie. It's like, why did he commit the mass shooting? Part of it is like this nihilistic worldview that he had. Part of it is this desire to be like, you know, this narcissistic, psychopathic view of like, I am the main character. You are to bow down to me. I am your god, King Robin Hood. Part of it is that he views people in general kind of like the sheriff of Sherwood or whatever. And that, like, you know, he's robbing their lives from them.
Sheriff of Nottingham?
Sheriff of Nottingham. Shut the fuck up. Sherwood Forest, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah, he kind of sees himself as, like, a fastest man alive type. Like
it's a fastest man alive type, like, similar, like,
or
maybe Allen,
maybe like
bit.
some kind of, like, shadow demon baby guy from Harry Potter or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe some kind of, moody gay guy from Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But, yeah, he sees himself as, like, this or whatever. But ultimately, at the end of the movie, when asked the question, like, why did you do it? He goes, I used to think I knew why, but now I don't know. Well, we talked about what that meant for his relationship to his mom, but also part of that is a relationship to himself and why he also did that for his own reasons. And it, you know, once you stop, like, once you realize there is no purpose or meaning, it all starts to make sense. And ultimately, there's a reason we call these senseless acts of violence. Yeah. There was no actual sense to it all. Mm-hmm. He might have thought that he had a reason for it, but none of it was really justified, and there was no actual reason why he did it. He just did it. And that's just kind of life. we have these mass shootings, and we have like in this country, and like yes, big part of it has to do with access to firearms. I'm not gonna get into all that, right? But like, it's because there is no purpose. It's just he's just an outsider, and he just did a thing.
Maybe 7 billion people weren't supposed to live on the planet at once.
Did you just describe him doing a school shooting as he did a thing?
He did a whoopsie.
He did a oopsie whoopsie,
He did a
a fucky
oopsie
wucky.
daisy.
He's right behind me.
Oh my
isn't
God,
he?
guys!
I-
Cringe!
I-
I did a school shooting.
I thought I was at archery practice the whole time.
Whoa! Those weren't regular cupcakes, dude.
Also, real
I
quick,
killed Cindy from
he
math
does-
class.
he
Oh,
does
look, I
say-
shot that girl in each one of her boobs.
Jesus Christ.
I do think it's interesting that with the timing of the book's release. The book came out in like 2003,
4 or 3, something like that.
which
yeah.
is a few years after Columbine.
Oh, it's definitely commenting on that. Like, it's
Yeah.
definitely like it is 100% inspired by the Columbine shooting. There is no way that author thought to do that.
And
without
lucky
thinking-
And
for
apparently-
Lynne Ramsay, the story's evergreen in America.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, unfortunately.
apparently this is a movie that she had been wanting to make for years. Apparently she wrote the script years like back in 2005 or 2006. She bought the rights to the book and wrote the script. And for obvious reasons, it was very hard to get made because she couldn't get funding for it.
Hard to get the
And
right
this
timing
movie-
to it.
Yeah.
This movie
They
actually,
they couldn't find enough bows and arrows.
yeah, this movie is actually interesting in that like
The libs keep trying to take him away.
this movie has over 20 producers.
Holy shit!
Yeah. And I think, and it's also produced by the National British Lottery.
It's got Ron Jeremy,
something. Yeah, it's a
Jeremy
BBC
Johns.
it's a
Axel Rod.
It's a
got Sid
BBC
Vicious.
film.
Yeah.
It's a BBC film, and as a result, BBC films are like funded partially
Yeah.
by the National like British Lottery and whatnot.
And apparently,
So, yeah.
I was also looking up. This movie was shot in a month.
Holy
Only-
shit!
Yeah, it was only shot in 30 days. It's crazy.
I mean, but you think about it, it's like it's not a bottle movie, but it's like not far off.
Yeah.
it's not that many locations.
You have the house.
very small cast of
But
characters.
it tricks you into thinking that it does more stuff than it actually does
Yeah.
because they are always cutting back and
cutting
forth.
back and forth, but it's like ultimately it's like what are the locations in this
And
movie?
what
right?
they
You can count them on your hand. There's the house, there's the apartment, there is her second house, there is
her wor- her-
Spain,
her work,
The school.
the school, and then her old work like before,
Yeah.
and that's it. Those are like
And-
the only
and what they-
location in the doctor's office twice.
and they do.
And every location is used more than once.
Oh, and in the prison, yeah, that's
Yeah.
And
for a
maybe
feature-length film. That is 9 locations.
maybe it's just me, but I got used to it, but I was a little confused initially at the sort of the time jumps that they were doing because they do the real like key signifier of like where it takes place in time, if it's the present or if it's the past, is her haircut.
Yeah.
Like she has
Which
a
is smart.
She has a shorter haircut, I think, in the present, and a longer haircut in the past. Now it took me,
no,
or
no.
maybe I got that reversed.
No, it's far in the past. She has long hair before that. She has Kevin. When she has Kevin, she gets her hair cut and it's very short. And while she's a mother, her hair is very short. Once everything happens, the present day, her hair is now the exact same length as Kevin's.
And I think I think now I'm starting to realize that maybe your kind of initial of like, okay, so where are we? I think that might have been intentional.
It's intentional.
That kind of like, where exactly are we in time? Because the movie literally starts with a cold open of like, like
in media res.
Yeah, in slow mo, and with that tomato festival in Spain, and she's crowd surfing, and you're like, okay. And then it kind of jumps from that to I don't remember exactly what
I think
happens
it's
after
her
that.
waking up hungover on the
Yeah.
couch.
And so then so that kind of initial kind of okay, whoa, where are we? Reaction, I think, yeah, what may have been the intention.
I'm pretty sure it opens with shots of the parents, like reverse shots, not of the school but of the parents,
Oh yeah. That might.
interspersed. It's not
Yeah.
focused on explicitly.
Yeah.
But
Another thing I'd like to really quick mention of this real fast is that we talk about like her mother and like her growing up. You don't really know much about her mom, at least in the movie. We do know one thing, and that's that she is willing to lie to her mom to keep up appearances.
yeah.
Because
Oh,
her
yeah.
mom seems to be, at least the way she reacts to her, overbearing in some sort of way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting. But also another thing you notice is that she is taking a lot of antipsychotics.
Yeah.
At least the only time we see her taking them is like after the incident present day. We see her taking a fuck ton of them, and also I would say she's become an alcoholic, but that's the way they portray it at first. But as the movie goes on, you flash back far enough or enough times flash back, it becomes kind of apparent she might have just always been an alcoholic.
Yeah.
She was just very good at like maintaining herself. And Kevin even calls it out when they go out to dinner, and he's like, you're starting that bottle right now. It's gonna start with the simple questions, and you're gonna ask about drugs, and then you're gonna ultimately like reach across and put your arm around me and just like try to like relate to me and be all lovey dovey and stuff. And it shows that there's a pattern to her behavior.
Yeah.
So there's so many layers to this movie, and I don't know, it's not very clear. But yeah, I gotta say, like, it's a hard and important movie, I think, for everyone to watch. I think some people might think that
definitely.
we oversold how fucked up it is now that you've watched it, hopefully, while you're watching this episode.
It's just sad.
Well, hopefully, if you're
It's
watching
just-
this, you've already seen it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's just emotionally draining.
Well, that's-
It's incredibly bleak.
the implications
but, yeah.
are the fucked up part. It's not like some other movies that have like hardcore like rape scenes or like torture scenes or like insane gore,
like some other movies on the list that
or
we'll
like
discuss at some
these
point.
long nihilistic diatribes meant to get at existential dread.
Can't wait to talk about Solo, 120 Days of Sodom. Woo.
Yeah,
is
number
that
one
on
on my list.
someone's
No.
Okay.
No.
But
But we are going
unlike,
to watch Come and See at some point.
no, anyways, unlike anything like that, this movie is fucked up just because of how real it is.
And also,
and how
it's-
depressing
It's
it
sadly,
is.
it's sadly extremely, like, I guess, timeless.
There is an
message.
insane amount of people in this country, a way too high number of like parents in this country who can directly relate to this
Like,
movie.
at the time of this recording, the Uvalde shooting in Texas was not that long ago. Incredibly
Before that,
sad.
there was the Buffalo shooting and everything, and it's
I mean, that's
Just wait till we get a Mark
mean,
Wahlberg
just-
style Boston bombing type movie
Oh my
about
God.
the Uvalde cops, and
Like-
he's just like, "No, I want to go in. You gotta let me go in, Chief."
let me go.
And then even probably the most disturbing one to me, and this is one I still think about sometimes, just because of just how just needlessly cruel it was. I mean, yeah, obviously, but like I keep thinking about the Christchurch shooting, and what's so fucked up about that one is the guy was live streaming it, and he was just so casual.
Well, it's
like-
also the
like
Buffalo
it,
shooter.
like
did
it
that
was
too.
like it was a day at the fucking
He
stroll
was making
for him.
iDubbbz and PewDiePie references.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
right there's right when the live stream begins, he like goes to the trunk of his car, pulls out a gun, and goes, "All right, guys, remember to subscribe to PewDiePie," and then walks into the church and starts shooting.
Yeah.
And it's just so fucking grim.
Yeah, and and it all like directly like that is why this movie is, as Jesse said earlier, evergreen. You know what's it's just so goddamn heartbreaking, and it makes you really think, like, would I really be a good parent? Should I be the parent for my kid? Or maybe there's someone else out there who's virtuous enough to who is virtuous enough to raise my child properly and raise my child well. And it's like, should I just put my kid in this basket and let it float down the river? Or should I put it in a rocket ship and launch it off of my dying planet to Earth? Just like next week's episode, Richard Donner's Superman.
A much more happier, optimistic movie.
If you want to talk
depending on
about,
your point of
if you
view.
want to talk about movies about parents, we're getting one about objectively good parents.
Yes, the best parents, literally the best parents on
Best
earth.
parents that there ever could have been.
Ma and Pa Kent.
Ma
I love
and
them
Pa
so
Kent,
much.
great, amazing. So that is what next week's episode is going to be about. It's going to be a Richard Donner Superman. That is the one from the 1970s. I'm sure many of you, Christopher Reeve, the titular Superman. I'm sure many of you out there have heard of Richard Donner's Superman, but I'm going to be real. A lot of you probably have seen clips and you know about it, and your parents probably like it, but you yourself might not ever watch it because it came out back in the 70s. It's kind of old, and it's a different way of making a comic book movie. It's not anything like what comic, and I'm not even going to shit on comic movies now. It's just different. It's a different.
I
It's
promise you will believe a man can fly.
you will believe a man
You
can fly. You will believe a man can come.
Because we don't want to talk about it too much.
It's me.
It's me. I'm going to be coming.
But like, when you see the movie, I think if you were not really sure before, you will see why Christopher Reeve is still the definitive
Superman. Well, like also the other reason why this is like such a perfect movie to come right after we need to talk about Kevin. You ever watch like a horror movie or something, and immediately after you got to put on like Cartoon Network? this is the same vibe.
And so it's
the palate cleanser.
This will continue our, I guess,
Somebody save me.
our unofficial quadrilogy of movies about parenting.
So we got Lady Bird,
Birdman.
Birdman.
Starting with Birdman, ending with
Birdman,
Superman.
kinda.
He has a very tumultuous relationship with his daughter. We discussed that in that episode.
Yeah, but unlike all these, well, I guess Superman also.
Anyways,
Yeah,
we're
fuck it,
wrapping up now.
quadrilogy.
Everyone shut the fuck up. You know what? These idiots can talk all they want. If you want to listen to them talk, you can listen to them and watch them every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you get notified whenever you're live. We also, every single day, aside from Saturdays and Sundays, we are posting YouTube shorts clips of the podcast. Make sure to check them out. They're also being posted on my TikTok. Make sure, if you're really into listening to podcasts, you go check out iTunes or Spotify or anywhere you can get podcasts, quite frankly, and give it a 5-star and go listen to it there. On top of this, if you're watching on YouTube, down below, go ahead and leave a comment. If your child was a psychopath, what would you do? What would you do?
Or if you lost a kid in a school shooting.
Oh my god.
Okay, Jesse, don't
Leave your
say
in
that.
memoriam. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we have leave your in memoriam.
Leave your
No,
in
what the
memoriam.
fuck is this?
In the comments.
God,
Yeah, leave your
what
in
the fuck
memoriam.
is going on? Good night.